Welcome back to the Air Crown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start on this very slow Thursday morning over here from a very bright and sunny Helsinki, Finland. I'm trying my first day of months, actually more than probably months of no coffee or no caffeine. So we'll see how this one goes. It's going to be a little bit on the slower side, so I do apologize in advance. But I wanted to follow up on the thread of analysis that we've been having here for the past couple weeks, and then also swing back around for the short-term timeframes as well, of course, as you know, that is always pertinent. Anyways, with that said, I should let you know that we have a sale going on for the next 3 days to celebrate the 4-year anniversary of this place, which is absolutely insane. I really don't know what to make of that. Still, it's like each and every year that passes by, it becomes even more and more greater. And I'm like, what do I make of this? I don't know, but we'll swing back into it perhaps at the end of this video here to kind of explain a little more in depth about the programs because, well, I want to get into the content right now. So let's do this. And we'll start it off with the chart of the day, that is. And the chart of the day is a continuation of the chart that we've been looking at for the past couple weeks here. A chart that has historically shown about a 45% gain or loss granted this signal. So of course the signal itself is based off of the low 5-day BBWP representing volatility reads right here, of which that gives us the bias for a major move to come. Historically speaking, this has aligned, like I said, with about a 45% move on average, both to the north side or the south side. Of course, volatility is direction neutral. We'll be using a momentum oscillator to kind of get a bias on direction, and then most importantly, major areas on price action that confirm that direction as well for a high probability setup in this case. So in this case right here, we've seen in the past year or so, there has been 1, 2, 3, 4 prior iterations of very low volatility regions like we're kind of dealing with right now. And we're actually at the lowest, I believe, the summer May Dumbola was ever so slightly lower than what we do see right here as far as volatility goes, but very much comparable to these to give us an idea of the severity of this likely resolution. On top of that, we've seen essentially a general contraction phase going back all the way to January of last year, in fact. So we are looking very, very likely at the resolution of this. I do suspect relatively soon. Typically speaking, when you do kind of wedge yourself into one of these sort of formations, when you're about 70 to 75% full is when you're most likely to break out. So I suspect that the next breakout from this is going to be, a pretty mega move, probably even getting more than 45% gain or loss in this case, just, personally speaking, because I do think that we're seeing essentially the culmination of, a year-long range, or actually in this case, more than a year-long range of consolidation. So that doesn't actually line up. Anyways, with that in mind, we're going to go back into the most relevant the most relevant thing that we've been looking at for the past, like week or so that we've been following up on that can give us a bit of a bias on direction. In this case, it's going to be the 5-day stochastic momentum oscillator right here. So I've marked off the same green vertical bars correlated with those low volatility regions. And then I've marked off the turning points for momentum when those did occur. So on this first one here in May, obviously to the downside, then in the summer in July, late July that is, to the upside, again in late September, early October to the upside, and then again most recently to the downside in December. Anyways, the reason why I'm pointing this out right now is because we did confirm another 5-day closure last night, and, well, it did confirm the criteria that was necessary in order to cross the 5-day stochastic momentum to the upside. So I want to now show you on the chart where these areas sort of correlate with. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here with the measurements because we can also not just measure out the likely percentage gain or loss, but even the days that it's taken as well. They do have kind of a rhyme there, it does look like. But ultimately, when we line up these regions with low volatility in the momentum, you can see in this first iteration right here, for example, that in this case, obviously for May, it was downside momentum when that trigger did happen for the volatility, and it was also losing the bullish control zone right here. So two very important things happening at the same time. Now, I think that we kind of already know, where these next ones are coming in from, but obviously this one right here from July, upside momentum and moving out of the bearish control zone in this case, kind of the opposite but equal response to what we saw in May. And then of course, whoopsies, wrong button right there. Again, apologies for the lack of caffeine here. It's not treating me well, man. I can tell you, if you're thinking about taking some time off, don't do it. Just don't fucking do it. Just don't ever stop. Anyways, no, this is not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. Obviously, look at my fucking hair. Anyways, in this case right here, the next one in late September, early October of last year, again, very low volatility and was crossing up within the context freshly of the bullish control zone right here. So Very important as well. And then the more recent one in December, obviously this one to the downside and losing the bullish controls on all at the same time. Very comparable to what we saw over in May. So the reason why I'm calling this out and the reason why I'm spending so much time on this is because we did see that officially the 5-day stochastic momentum has not just crossed the upside after a bit of a wish-wash right there for the last closure, but it is working its way out of the bearish control zone as well, which does hold its own weight, again, within one of the lowest volatility reads that we have seen in the past year, actually, for this time frame. So I do think that that does hold quite a fair bit of weight. What we can do now is, or what I've already done here, is I have measured out those gains and losses. Well, let me make this a little more visually appealing. There we go. And the days that it's taken. So obviously this first one over here, about 48%. Took 45 days about from major high to major low in this case. Next one over here took about 35 days for about 42.29% from bottom to high. These aren't like super exact. I, usually get out like my magnifying glass, but in this case I didn't because, well, just wanted to make this chart. But ultimately the next one after that, very comparable as well. 35 days, 46.75% to the, from signal given to next major high. And then of course the one after that we do see in December, and that was a downside move over the course of 50 days. So again, they're all, very comparable to each other, but 42.17% to the downside. So in this case right here, when we're looking at this this new signal that's kind of been baking here, I do look at this as, historically relevant within the course of, 40-ish, let's say 40 to 45 days on average, somewhere in between there. Just doing some bad mental math right now. Is where I'd be looking for the first sort of splurt of the signal, if you will. And if we were to obviously add about 45% to the signal, in this case, essentially assuming an upside resolution, a continuation of that upside, which again, I do want to really measure this up with a major range being broken, a very specific price action that we're looking for to fully confirm this, at least in the way to look at things. Obviously, you're free to do whatever the hell that you want to do. This is not financial advice, not financial advisor, blah 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 blah. But in this case right here, 45% to the upside. Where does that put Bitcoin? At around $56,000. Keep that number in mind. Within the course of, let's say, I don't know, a little bit over a month and a couple weeks perhaps. And then of course to the downside, we do have in this case, let me actually just get it properly. 45% to the downside puts Bitcoin somewhere around 24,000 bucks, depending upon where you kind of take it from, but anywhere down around there does make sense and will line up with one of our major technical targets if the downside validation is hit. But for right now, because of what happened in the last 24 hours, do I think that the upside has a higher probability? Yes, I do. Just based off of that history. Again, doesn't mean it's going to always work out like that, but until it stops, well, the last four times have been pretty damn good. So fair enough, trends typically do continue. So let's go over here onto the daily as well. I do want to point this out. The daily stochastic momentum also freshly went to the upside as well upon yesterday's closure. What I'm looking for now is actually a couple of very interesting things. I'm looking for obviously continuation off of that pivot, which is 38,300. So that is a big one to the downside. Now, I would go as far as saying that I could make a flat line just at $38,000. Anywhere below there, and I would call, major continuation to the downside very, very likely. For the upside, you probably already know, but it's about $44,500 on a daily closure. But for right now, the reason why I'm pointing out on the daily here is that we do have we do have a big signal on this one, also kind of building up here, which is the intended way to actually use this indicator that I'm using right here. Let me actually pull it up on this pane so that we can measure it up with the DMI. But basically, what's going on right here is that the DMI has actually flipped green, and the DMI is flipped green within the context of very low ADX, so another kind of indicator representing volatility from a different angle, and then HVP obviously very low, and then BBWP also representing volatility also rather low as well. So if we do see that's the next expansion phase, meaning that these volatility indicators start to point up, we already have the momentum indicators in place. I would say that would be another major boost in the BULA's favor, obviously. So in order to maintain these closures, I mean, it's quite far away, so it's not like too interesting right now, but what we're essentially looking for now is, well, that first major tick up in volatility. So that is going to be the the defining feature of of any sort of a major range resolution in this case. And again, if we're going to go over here and just put it on the chart, it's quite literally as simple as this on this chart right here. Above 44,500 good on a daily closure. On a 4-hour, I'd use $45,000. Below about probably 38,000 bucks, I'd say, would be quote unquote bad. If you want to go by the book, I'd say about just over $37,000 because it's we do still see this kind of rising up right here. But ultimately, back down around there, I would start to look at this and confirm this as one major consolidation being resolved to the downside. Until then, make no mistake about it. And I want to give a shout out to Mr. Wally in the Discord there. For calling this one out. He's like, look, while everyone's kind of getting excited about this in the short-term timeframes, still got lower highs. You're 100% right, sir. 100% right. And god damn it, man, that is amazing that you're not getting swept up away in the emotions that I know that many people will in a move like this. Understand that very little has actually changed here on the short-term timeframes. To be fair, we did head up to our top side of the short-term timeframe resistance. We said that was likely over the past couple days. We've gotten that target. Likely to pull back from there, actually. So short-term timeframes, actually, I do think pull back a little bit more, probably somewhere down around low $40,000 territory. But I would say that the blue laws do have the ball in their court right now, especially as long as we're above this blue box territory right here, which has a bottom of about 39,700. Let's call it on about a 4-hour closure. So that is to say that as long as Bitcoin's above there, I do look at pullbacks as resulting likely in a higher low. But in order to confirm continuation, same thing as before. Even for the short-term timeframes, above, what is this wick right here? This wick from 16th of March. Even above our current highs is, would be good enough, 41.5 or so. I would be looking for the next leg up, very, very likely somewhere around $43.5 to $44,000. Obviously, that puts Bitcoin very, very close to the natural topside resolution of this formation. And at that point, kind of judging more generalized targets here, that would confirm, again, above $44,500, the relevancy of this, and now calling back to the targets that we postulated over here as potential upside resolution or downside. We'll start with the upside first because, well, it's more interesting, I guess. We would confirm, or Bitcoin would confirm, because I am not Bitcoin, I'm just a person looking at Bitcoin. Have to separate these two things, right? Otherwise we get stuck in the gangs. Anyways, this would be a reaccumulation formation in the format of an ascending triangle, basically just higher lows. So that would be your reaccumulation in this case, or just accumulation actually, because we haven't really had the re part just yet. And of course, the confirmation on that formation would be above about $44,500 on a daily, which has a natural technical target all the way up here, which is just under $56,000. You'll also notice that this is exactly in line with the 3 spot 272 Fibonacci extension, so good natural confluence right there, alongside a statistically relevant target, and that would also naturally confirm a couple of very important things over here on the weekly. First and foremost, and most important out of anything that I put a shit ton of weight on, Bitcoin would naturally confirm another higher low on the weekly. So we'd have the low, higher low, or higher low, and higher low yet again, and it would confirm, more importantly, a more complex macro low, in my opinion, right here, which would naturally have another drive of hidden bullish divergence, thus rejecting the bearish controls on weekly RSI. So as of right now, you can see that we don't have possible or potential hidden bullish divergence. Did I say bearish? I meant bullish, obviously, hidden bullish divergence. Possible just yet. If Bitcoin gets and closes this weekly above, I think like 41.5 or so, it'll start to show up there, and that will have a natural target in the next few weeks at around $51.5 to $52,000, and then a more aggressive target over a longer period of time, perhaps at around $57,000. Again, very close to what we're kind of postulating for that volatility signal as well. So in this case, the weekly will essentially confirm a macro low, at least in my opinion, with any sort of a weekly closure, even above about 43.5 or so. All these numbers are very close to each other. I would put the importance right there. By the same token, to the downside, let's say that Bitcoin pops back down, and more importantly, in the short term, we see that critical closure, on this chart right here, below 39,600. That's going to be the first major warning signal. And I would say no longer do the blue laws have the ball in their court. This is not just a pullback. This is likely going to be another lower high before getting ready for another test down towards your lows. And personally speaking, at that time, I mean, you probably have to be looking for another short-term bounce off this region, I suppose, low 37, but I don't think it would be much more than that, to be honest with you. So in that case, what sort of a historical thing can we be looking at to get a judgment on that target? Well, obviously we've already kind of measured it out over here, somewhere around about $23,000. We actually do have a very historically relevant chart over here on the monthly, where each and every time we've even seen the monthly MACD cross the downside, it's actually always led towards a move towards the green 55 exponential moving average on this chart. Guess where that is right now? just below 24,000 bucks. So, we could get a wick a little bit lower than that, sure. But generally speaking, on a closing basis, Bitcoin likes kind of hanging out around there. And for what it's worth, we already do have that monthly MACD cross to the downside. Now, I would say that signal needs to be fully validated, in my opinion, either with an actual range break here. So that would be with a daily closure. I'd even go as far to say now $38,000 is probably good enough for me. But if you want to go by the book, 37,000. As we said before, and also on the monthly, which obviously this doesn't really update too often, but if you do have the patience for it, once we get that MACD cross the downside plus an actual closure on the monthly below the white 20 simple right here, that's when that signal has been, essentially not just validated, but that's where it became like a lot more relevant for the timing of it, if you will. You can see that price action really started to accelerate to the downside after it lost it right here in 2014, right here in 2018, and almost simultaneously in March 2020, obviously off the Rona dump. In this case, guess where the 20 simple is? Basically around that $38,000 number. So that's kind of the relevancy of that right now. I do think that the Bulas have more things in their court, obviously. Short term, probably plays out a bit of a pullback here, but Bulas want to see a higher low, basically preferably above $40,000. I'd say that could come as low as 39,650 or 39,600 if you just want to round it off there. But the second that Bitcoin starts to come back down about below there, I would say that the probabilities of this becoming your next major lower high before major continuation of the downside get increased dramatically. Until then, short-term time frame, stochastic momentum is actually still angled to the upside here on the 4-hour, as long as Bitcoin's closing above 40,630. 6-hour time frame is also going to be showing upside momentum as long as Bitcoin's above 40,000 bucks. So, these are not bad for right now, so to speak. 3-hour, 40,800, so kind of right where we're at currently. And bi-hourly going to be freshly down below 41, and hourly is going to be down as well below about 41,300. Keep in mind though, all of these signals on the lower term time frames here, let me just pull back onto this one, are coming within the context of declining BBWP. So we're looking for a contraction phase. If the Bulas are going to take over, we expect that contraction phase to lead into a higher low. Anywhere, like I said, down around 40,000 bucks is fair game. Even down to as much as 39,600 is fair game. But below there is where I say that is no longer, a likelihood. And I would validate the next sort of short-term breakout, basically above the same areas before, 41,500 on a 4-hour closure. Very likely looking at moves back up towards 42.5 to 43. Probably continues from there, to be quite honest with you, just because so damn close and already takes out that last prior high anyways. Cool. I think I've spoken your head off in this 17-minute video. I didn't really speak too much about things going on over here. Global open interest obviously ticking back up here. So, back above about 11 billion. I want to very much be aware of if and when the open interest gets above, especially 13 billion is kind of like an early warning signal, and then 14 billion. Those have been typically where we have seen some catastrophic, pullbacks, if you will. And, again, not too much to talk about right here, but the funny rates, while they are very, very low, we expect them to be very, very low. You can essentially look at them as, playing up that same sort of consolidation actually over the past year here as they start to trend towards zero realistically. So not really giving me a major bias right there. And then of course the fear and greed index is still at a 24. So Bitcoin's are, people in this market still on the more fearful side. And for what it's worth right now, just another higher low. So I do think that holds a lot of merit as well. And then I guess I'll briefly touch on this. We have our 4-year anniversary sale going on right now. Basically with all the programs, they all come with like some sort of a promotional video. I strongly suggest you watch that before ever, considering buying anything, because it's going to basically explain what to expect, and then you can decide for yourself, is this for me or is this not for me? I think for these two programs right here, the TA and the options program, I have to say a little bit more about them because these ones are very near and dear to my heart. This one especially being kind of like my life's work and something that I update, over the years, even since its release. Like, in fact, the program's probably like 2 times the size now, which might be bad. But more importantly with those, if for most people, I find it usually takes about a year or 2, year and a half to kind of get where you want to get. So these are not magic pills. And to my knowledge, I don't know of any magic pill, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, some people get there a little bit faster than that, around 6 months maybe, if they're like really, if their heart's really in it, if they're just kind of just have a person to undertake these things very quickly. Some people take a little bit longer. Some people never get there at all. It all comes down to what you essentially put into it. So I just want to say that because I don't really have any I don't really want to like sell something to someone that doesn't need it, because it just creates it, honestly, for a selfish reason, just creates more problems on my own end and for our customer service. So yeah, I'll just leave that right there. I'm gonna be signing off now. We'll be back on tomorrow. I don't know if tomorrow will be a live stream, because I do know that I have a doctor's appointment sometime in the day. So we'll see if times line up. If not, it might be a shorter stream. All right, cool. Signing off now. Take care and stay safe.